Mm.
31. Close, but the attack speed on top.
That's better, no?
Yeah, but it looks good. Yeah.
Better than what we had. It's not better than theirs. 23 to 36. The flat
34, right?
the flat fizz is perfect on theirs. 24. To 34. Nope. One fizz off.
That's good, no?
I'm looking at 23 to 31. 23 to 31 is what, 54? Oh, that's worse. One attack speed and the flat fizz is lower. Same average cold and the 1% lower bow damage.
Oh, I get.
Oh. 19 to 32.
The Mary lean.
Oh my god, no way. Oh. Hit like everything perfect. Oh, sorry, the implicit. The fizz
The
hit.
implicit is disgusting.
Yeah, and the cold also rolled the bottom.
I'll put the word out.
Oh.
Exile? Anyone? Celerim.
Fuck, that was close. Uh, 55. 51, 54 is what. Got 50 and 50. Oh, damn it, dude. Fucking top of $51.
So close.
This one is close too. Fuck me.
I'm being punished, aren't I? Multiplicity. Fight the slowing of your own heart.
49. No. Fuck if the attack speeds.
I cannot do this yet.
Make your wish. So be it.
I have never seen the sun with my own eyes, but I soon will.
And
That's basically the same.
51 and 54. No, it's worse. It's worse everywhere. Worse decks. Worse perfect everywhere except for the
The battle has been won.
60. Or they have 4 more flat fizz. We would have 6 more flat cold. The attack speed fucks it.
Still have a lot of divines. We're good.
Yeah, no, I was just taking an inventory here.
What's happening in the next 50? You know it.
600 and
They are coming.
$32. 19 to 32, and it rolls literally like the worst one.
Is that attack speed?
Got the implicits.
Approach.
Fuck the bottom end on the cold. 50.
That's very close.
Yeah, we lose out on the attack speed though.
1% attack speed difference.
Yeah, but the fizz is more important than the cold. So it's just overall worse. 1% attack speed is 5% attack speed too. Damage with those skills is less important. if that were...
I cannot do this yet.
What is your desire? Slaughter them all.
Leave none alone.
Close. On the fizz top end. It's only 45 to 50. Fuck. Bottom end here.
So close.
46 to 57. It's 47 plus 52. Oh my god, damn it. Dude, if our bottom end was higher on the fizz. fuck, dude, the attack speed. God damn it. Perfect phase. Attacks, perfect attacks. 33. Fuck.
A legendary battle.
Fuck. 50 and 54. 22. We're lower on every single mod by 1 point. Flat phase, 1 flag cold. Flat dex, 1% attack speed. I think we beat it. 23.
Yeah, we got it, man.
23.
We got it.
23, win sec. 19 to 32. That's perfect on the fizz. And on the cold, we have perfect top end. And we have 2 off the bottom. So that's 59, and they have 54. And we are only missing 2 off the damage. Yeah, this is better. Oh, and we have the dex. Oh, yes, ours is better. Ours is better.
Hell yeah!
GG.
Yeah, it's
GG.
Let's go.
Easy, easy, easy.
Look at that.
It's not quite 50, but we will take it.
we have better dex. We lose 1 attack speed, and we lose 3% damage, which the 3% damage with both skills doesn't really matter. But we gain 6 top end on the flat cold, which is much more important. And the dex there too.
Let's fucking go.
'Cause yeah, the flat values are the most important. So
We win.
We have, what's that, 22 plus 30, so that's 59. 29.5, and theirs is... So that's 54, 27. So yeah, we have the, it's too bad that that 1% attack speed was there. But I still think ours is definitely better. The flat values are the big thing there. We have basically perfect flat. Fuck yeah.
Ah, finally.
I had 19 divs too, so that'd be minus 19.
See? We didn't need 1000. Told you.
Better we have it and don't need it. So 407. Send me a DM, guys. I'll percentage of what left. Bank is 2. Wait, everyone stay in my hideout for a sec first, because I'm gonna. Tank cracks. Point 0.8. All right, so everyone, how much did I just give everyone?
I got 81.
Who's I?
114 Uncle said.
Uncle said?
I have 114.
14. Okay. Pang, how much I give you?
81.
And then Pang, how much were you? 48?
Yep. 49, 49.
7 times 0.4. Okay. How much does that mean that we used? We used 593. Okay.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm just to mark it down on the thing. So that's 2793. Okay. And we've got. Four hundred minus 163. 200 minus 81. And 9. Tank. Wonko. Tank. Built in. Okay, so we'll do the first services, pay those back for everyone who did their. Okay, so it's 237 for me, 119 for Bank, 166 for Onkill, 71 for Pank.
Okay.
Oh, what's all
Sounds good.
Oh, this was mine, yeah, sorry. Oh, fucking A, boys. He counted you as at 120? Yeah, no, I did Onk as 280. And Pank is 120. Was that not correct?
Yeah, it's correct.
Alright, fucking A. There we go, boys. The new Bissy Biss. Let's change zones so we can compare it to TFTs.
Approach. Make your wish.
Oh, it's not even. Yo, fucking the guy who's named Janubu isn't even Janubu. Somebody stole Janubu's name.
Makes sense. Not really. That's fucking disgusting.
1% attack speed for 5 flat cold, and then 1 dex for 2 damage. Perfect. All right, everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Hey, Bilton, can you link the quiver to me in game again? Just wanna
Yep.
take a moment. Yeah.
Oh, and also say hello to the YouTube video. Hello, YouTube video.
Hello.
Hello. We beat it.
We beat it. Let's go. All right, I'll end the YouTube video now. All right, thanks YouTube. If you enjoyed watching, like, sub, all that good stuff. Peace.
I give you to my ancestors.
It's interesting to wonder how many of you guys would consider going out to the forest if society were to disappear or vanish or somehow collapse. Today's video, I'm going to be sharing a specific experience that a park ranger called Emmanuel went through in the 1990s in Liberia. Now, I've never featured I think I featured a few encounters outside of the United States, but nearly all of them are from my US based viewers, who are around 80 to 90% of my audience. A lot of people would come out to a forest if they felt more comfortable. Maybe they knew how to do bushcraft or survival, they are trained in it or have done it since birth with their parents, and they would feel more comfortable doing that. But in the interview that I had with Emmanuel, he talked me through his experience being a ranger in the 90s in Liberia during an extremely unstable time in the country's history, where people were quite literally in a state of civil unrest and collapse. People were living as clans in the forest in small pockets. Lots of people in societies were, you know, committing atrocious things. And Emmanuel was witnessing everything firsthand in regards to the forest, because he was the ranger of one of the forests in the southern region. And this region of Liberia, the area he was in, he explained in great detail to me how eventually, as things started to progress and the faith in the local establishment and the government declined, people began acting up, misbehaving, stealing from one another, ignoring rules and the safety of others. And the thing is, with Emmanuel's situation, it's not like he can just choose not to go into work anymore. He still had a duty. And a park ranger in Liberia or anywhere in Africa, it's not quite the same as a park ranger in the United States. You see, their job is arguably a lot more stressful, a lot more difficult. And hear me out, their job isn't necessarily to empty trash cans or make sure the local cafe is full of happy people on their hikes. Instead, it's to stop people logging who shouldn't be logging. It's to stop people taking, taking animals who shouldn't be taking animals, or hunting them when they're not allowed to. And that's where you see a lot of these nature documentaries of the rangers and the wardens out in Africa, the different countries, and they are going out with, they're going out armed in these trucks, and they're catching what they call poachers. So Emmanuel was on the front line of 1990. And one thing he realized, not only did all this activity increase, which made his job very unsafe and a nightmare, we're going to walk through bit by bit how things gradually changed and the experience and how he told it to me, leading on into more and more people trying to live an off-grid life in clans, hunter-gatherer style living. And I thought, what better way to tell this experience than to come straight out into one of the most remote forests of my entire region. So, ladies and gentlemen, subscribe if you're new, and yeah, let's get started. In the late 1980s, things became very unstable in Liberia. Before then, the country was obviously in a lot of conflict and things were very tough. Emmanuel was working in a specific region as a park ranger, with the job of trying to reduce poaching, maintain the health and safety of the wildlife and endangered species around his jurisdiction, as they call it. He went into work most mornings very early, as lots of the park rangers do. His job was to make sure that there was no activity going on around the area which would be at detriment to the nature. You know, he is a guardian or a warden of the land. But as he began going into work, he soon noticed, obviously he was watching the news, he was keeping an eye on the state of his local towns, cities, villages, rural areas. He realized something had changed in people. Now, some of you may know more about this than me, what happened to Liberia. Maybe I have some people who even were part of what happened, or witnessed things, or lived them, like Emmanuel. But whilst you wake up It's not like it's a click of the fingers and it's like, oh, come on family, we're going to live in the forest because Walmart's shut down, the power's out, and they've got grids and checkpoints everywhere with law enforcement. That's not how it works. In fact, it's very gradual. Even if the grid and the power goes out very fast, it still takes time. It's a knock-on effect. There are backup systems and emergency measures in place. And obviously when that happens, it takes weeks for the actual citizens in their homes with their families to feel the effect of something that may have happened days, weeks, or even a month ago, depending on how long the buffer zone is between consequence, action, and reaction. Emmanuel was starting to watch these things unfolding, not just on the radio, on the TV. He saw it in person. People used to come and go on tours around the area. Lots of tourists, but also lots of locals would bring their families to nature and would have a good time. But as he began seeing things changing, becoming more tougher, people had no money to spend on going out and enjoying these tours or these safaris, as they used to call them. His job pretty much just then went on to focusing only on stopping the unwanted activity within the park. And that was the worst part of his job that he told me he hated the most, was trying to stop these people who were willing to basically get into dangerous altercations to make a living. You know, this was what they did. It was a network of individuals who would act in a way to try and make money and take from the nature. So whilst he was trying to do his job during these years in the 90s, it got more and more dangerous. Yes, he had to use a weapon. Yes, he got in multiple, what should we say, altercations over the years, or during this time. There was a particular month where he told me about something that happened where he actually caught some poachers, almost ended up losing his life as a result. It was only him and a fellow colleague that were there, and there was a whole group of them that had gone to a trap they had put out, and they got there just before Emmanuel and his colleague did, and it turned into a nightmare. So as I'm saying, this situation unfolded very slowly, and people were not coming out, not going to the forests. They were not enjoying family parks. They became survival. And like the video yesterday where I mentioned during lockdown, we had the same mindset here in the West. People stopped going out and going to clubs and bars and cinemas and holiday parks, and even a lot of places in nature stopped being hiked and trekked. The world literally shut down. Well, they had a mini version of this in Liberia in the 90s, where effectively families knew it was so dangerous that they stopped going out and they stopped spending their money, or what little money they had. It escalated pretty bad. Things started to go from bad to worse, and he noticed this around 3 years in to the instability of local authorities basically battling with different clans and groups that were funded by God knows who in little groups. And they were trying to overthrow the people in charge. There were different clans battling each other. It was a hellhole. It was horrific for the poor people involved in the crossfire, and it was very, very dangerous. He realized that he started to see a lot of people. There was a specific region inside of his region which was particularly untouched, and this was a heavily wooded area where effectively they had a lot of places where people could seek shelter by using materials and things around them. Now you're probably thinking, well, this is Africa, right? So there's not going to be that many forests. Well, you are correct in a sense. There's a lot of open space, and it's very desolate and different to our landscapes in Europe and America. But the reality is they still have areas that have a dense amount of trees. They're just different species of trees, and the way that they form together is totally different. So people were using this area to effectively form their own clan, but these were peaceful clans. Clans that were not armed, clans of mostly families and, you know, people who were trying to seek refuge and safety. The problem is that the towns and villages had effectively become war zones, so people were just constantly battling, and the families there were hidden in their homes, in their shelters, and they didn't want to be in the middle of this crossfire. They wanted to get out, and this was their choice. This was how they did it. So Emmanuel had a difficult situation here, because at the beginning he thought this was a great idea. He thought, I don't know if my hair's gone all over the place, it's so windy right now. He thought that this was a good idea, but he had a duty, he had a job to make sure that the landscape and the nature was not negatively impacted. But the problem here was that it was, because the numbers grew, and when word got out from one family living in this place to another, more and more came, until eventually the clans grew and they became 100, 300, thousands and thousands of people. And it was still rare because the word didn't get out to many, but it was in the thousands eventually at its peak, that there were estimated at least 1,000 or 2,000 people living in an off-grid style off the land, away from the grid, away from shops and stores and community and law enforcement. And as the ranger of this natural land, he had a dilemma, because he didn't want to kick these people off their land. He was still trying to attend work, as obviously he was considered an important officer in his country. So he was trying to stop the crazy levels of you know, unwanted activity in this park, while at the same time balancing the fact that families were fleeing the towns. But he noticed something, and that's why I've titled this the video of today the way I have, because I'll also chime in and give my own take on this. Is a lot of the time, you guys, people don't realize it's all sugar coated, this whole we'll just live in the forest. But he realized something. So as I said earlier, 3 years later, Emmanuel realized there was too many of them. In this region where they were, where all the dense area of trees were and vegetation and nature for, you know, food and stuff and animals, they soon became overcrowded, and different groups and clans would start battling amongst themselves. So effectively what you had was families that fled battle end up creating it in nature, which was Emmanuel's job to keep peaceful and untouched. So he had just thought, oh, this is okay, they can live away from the towns because they want to save their lives. But it turned into a situation where they then started ruining the area. And as that happened, they became extremely volatile, uncertain, and he said that dealing with the poachers, dealing with the hunting, dealing with the loggers that weren't supposed to log was easy compared to what he had to deal with in the mid-90s. At his peak, he was just completely forgetting about all of that activity and going straight for these people who were living off-grid, because they were causing more destruction than anything. In effect, they were not only hunting, not only poaching, but they were also doing a bunch of other stuff that the other guys weren't doing before the collapse of the infrastructure of society. So Emmanuel said to me that it seems all cool, but you don't realize the amount of people that will actually do that, because it's our natural state of existing. Once society collapses, we only stick around for so long, and if you stick around for too long, then it's game over. If you're waiting and waiting and, oh, Walmart will restock next week, don't worry everyone. Before you know it, you haven't got enough energy, and unless you were already very overweight, then you don't stand a chance at surviving without, you know, food for more than a month or two. So there's a little bit of a flood here, you guys. I'm just gonna have to get around this somehow. Don't even know how I'm gonna get around this. It's been a bit wet lately here in the UK. I decided to turn around as I can't get past that flood, and I realized that I was way too zoomed in on the camera. probably felt a bit up close and personal for some of you guys. I wanted to start right back off where I was, talking about the collapse of, you know, not just the food chain in society, but the infrastructure, and how people don't have long. People don't sit and wait around to be told what they can and can't do, and the ones that do, things could possibly happen to them. So Emmanuel was explaining to me that a lot of these people thought they were going to get away from the problem and soon wound up with a problem even worse than they actually had. Now, in a situation like this in society, especially in Liberia, which was very, you know, very difficult back then, they fled their properties. So in a sense, other people reclaimed them, and people were then living in the properties, you know, without even knowing whose it was. So they were all out in this forest, not knowing what was going on, if anything had become better. And most of these people that fled actually became really, really ill and really, really sick. And they stayed out there even past the point where they should have and could have just come back and rejoined society back in around the late 1990s, when stability and safety came back to Liberia. And Emmanuel tried time and time again. There was one specific day where he tried to go out and get as close as he could to these people without starting any kind of altercation or drama. But he said that the instant they saw him, they immediately started trying to get physical and run away, and they acted very you know, scared of him. They thought he was law enforcement, which, you know, he technically is, but he was not wanting to disturb them. He didn't want to make the families upset. And if you were to go into a forest or live a situation where you're totally off grid during a societal collapse, then people who think they're actually prepared don't truly know or expect anything of how it's going to be. And even the most trained veteran guys may still not fully understand how it's going to pan out and how things are going to, you know, happen. It's just not. Everyone has this fairy tale in their mind. Usually it's the time that takes a lot of people. It's the time. You know, how long do these instabilities last? And if you go to the forest, how long can you last trying to stay away from everyone? Because if everyone's doing the same thing, unless you live somewhere like Alaska or somewhere in the middle of nowhere, very wooded state in the US, or somewhere in Eastern Europe with lots and lots of woods only near villages, then perhaps you have more of a chance at living a more safe-ish and relaxed, carefree life. That's only if you have all the skills that are required to live that way. And this ranger continued working through the entire collapse and rebuilding of Liberia in the late 1990s, when the government again took back control and managed to keep law and order. At that point, the people who had been living off in the forests and on the nature reserves had suffered more than the people who stayed put with all the conflict in these towns and these cities. So he said that sometimes it seems like a cool way of doing things, but in actual fact, you can end up causing more problems for yourself than if you just stayed in the situation that you were already in. Emmanuel did give some advice in this situation. Found it a bit bizarre because most of his story was simply doom and gloom. Don't do this, you know, put up with it, this might happen, don't leave for the forest because this could go wrong. And I thought, well, I agreed with a lot of what he was saying, but the problem here is he wasn't giving any alternatives. And I don't like to just moan and make people sad or depressive. I like to think of positives or things we can learn.
Hello.
Disclaimer, this video is educational and informative in nature. Do not contact anyone shown in this video. Also, this video is discussing steroids. Do not use steroids. This is entirely for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Alright gang, we're going to go through one of the most insane steroid cycles that I've ever seen and the outcomes that most people are likely going to experience on steroids, which is not talked about very often. We have a success bias that we live in on a day-to-day basis consuming social media content. The people who have the great physiques are usually the ones that are going to go viral and tell you how great it is. But what you don't see is the people who get the most lackluster results. And if you're wondering why I look like a 12-year-old with a blanket wrapped around me, it's chilly, okay? Chilly. I live on the panhandle of Florida. It's usually warm. It's not warm this week. It's like 65 degrees, which is convenient compared to most of you. I won't lie. But for me, it's a little chilly. The reason I wanted to talk about this one in particular is because it is akin to a lot of the videos that we discuss, a lot of the horror stories of abusing steroids. And at first, I'll be honest with you, I was going through this post and I for sure thought it was just rage bait. I thought this was a joke and that this guy was just trying to post something to be, you know, viral on Reddit or something like that. As I went through it and then read his comments replying to other comments, I realized this is not a joke. This is one of the most extreme cases of abuse of steroids that I have ever seen, especially for an intro cycle, let alone an intro lifter altogether. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Coach Colton. We make content like this all day long. Make sure you subscribe. And if you don't, well, that's your choice. So he goes on to post, "Sup nerds, been lifting for about 6 months now, on gear with the above stated compounds. Been getting crazy mirrors." Myers? What is this? Look it up. What is this? A stretch of swampy, boggy ground. I'm like maybe too out of the age range to understand what that, I'm thinking this is when people glare at you or like glance at you. You know, we'll go with it. But the trend did give me wicked acne pic related. I've gained a solid 10 pounds and have started leaning out. The D-ball was making my tits feel weird.
Object to the tits!
Good.
Do you feel it?
No.
So I cut back. The lifts are going crazy. Almost a 225 bench now. That's why I thought it was a joke initially. I thought this was a joke because he said a 225 bench, which is like, you know, I think I got that when I was like 19. You know, like not really lifting very seriously, but we progress. So he gives the dosages to his compounds and the selection of compounds. He was running testosterone at 750 milligrams. And keep in mind, this is his first ever exposure to steroids. Per week, he's run 250 milligrams of Trent Ace per week. He's run 200 milligrams of Equipoise per week, and then 30 milligrams of D-ball daily. And as you can see, the acne development is absolutely diabolical here. This guy's back looks like there's a fleet of mini stormtroopers in the thousands and they were all blasting his back with laser blasters, and like he ended up like this. He has this very odd pose. Like I would be too embarrassed to post something like this, but we're here for science.
Yes, science!
He posted this very clearly developing gynecomastia, very clearly. And again, not really developing a notable physique whatsoever, but he is getting gyno. He's developing gyno, which is notable, at least.
Mama!
And I genuinely can't determine which is the before or after picture. I have an idea that it's probably the left image here, but the right image isn't far off when we're talking about results from a massive steroid cycle. I mean, to get this kind of result from well over a gram of total androgen exposure, it's pretty embarrassing. Genuinely, and I don't mean this lightly, this is the kind of result that one could achieve through a year of training and solid ass dieting. In all reality, take your creatine, all right, 5 to 10 grams a day, eat your protein, eat roughly 4 to 5 times a day, and train your ass off. And you've probably got similar results to this. Or you could say, fuck it and just blast over a gram of total androgens and have off with ye. So let's first talk about the cycle selection here. Testosterone, 750 milligrams. That's ridiculous, all right? Standardized TRT, somewhere around 100 to 125, maybe 150 milligrams if you're pushing it. This is far, far, far exceeding that in a total dose of testosterone. The outcome of that, obviously, is going to be some gains. You get androgen receptor receptor activation, which leads to lean mass accrual. Great, but not so great in terms of off-targeted side effects. For instance, if estrogen is not managed, it will cause problems like gynecomastia development, the development and growth of male breast tissue. Why does this happen? Well, testosterone is cleaved up by aromatase, an enzyme, which makes it into estradiol. Estradiol binds to estrogen receptors and initiates estrogenic activity. And essentially that looks like a lot of things, but mainly breast tissue development in males, which you can very clearly see him developing here. For most people, starting out at this dose is just dumb because you don't know how you respond to it. Aromatase activity is very genetically determined. Some people have very high aromatase activity. Some people have very low aromatase activity. Your body fat, in fact, produces aromatase. And so the higher body fat that you have, generally, the more estrogen that you will convert. The lower the body fat that you have, the less estrogen that you'll convert. So the general good practice, if you want to call it that, would be to start at a lower dose to assess your response to these certain pharmaceuticals. In this instance, starting at 200 milligrams of testosterone, waiting 4 to 5 weeks, assessing what your estrogen is at by getting an estradiol test, like the laboratory marker, but not just that. You need the liquid chromatography mass spectrometry test, which is you need an ultra sensitive assay to determine where your estrogen is at. This is going to give you a very big cue into what am I able to tolerate in terms of a total testosterone dosage. This guy very likely would have found out that he was not able to tolerate 750 milligrams of total testosterone. If you are somebody who does tolerate that, then you can titrate up by 50 milligrams or so and continue to assess your response. But in this case, he just shotgunned it and went for 750 per week.
And I have a shotgun. Let me prove it.
Which is, yeah, I mean, that's a lot. Then throwing Tren Ace. I mean, this is, I don't even need to explain this, guys. You know what Tren is. It is the premier steroid that most people kind of find virality with and talk about. Destructive, just wildly destructive.
These kids that want to do Tren,
bro, stop with the Tren.
These kids are brave. It is liver toxic.
It's like the worst thing.
It's like the worst thing. They see the reward, but they don't see like, I take this, and you know why they cough, right? It's because they have to put so much benzyl alcohol in that shit to keep it stable. The risk versus reward, like, I don't know, man. Like,
we talked about neurologically how it's probably the worst selection of drugs to choose. We've talked about cardiovascularly, how it's one of the worst selection of drugs to choose from. It is very, very clearly not a compound that is worth putting in any cycle unless you're a professional bodybuilder. And I genuinely believe that. Unless you're stepping on stage to compete at a decently high level, it's probably not worth you using at the end of the day. And if you do use it, I genuinely do believe that its best practice would be at like 5 to 10 milligrams a day, not 250 milligrams a week. But in this post, I mean, we have a guy who's doing well over 5 milligrams, which would be 35 milligrams a week. I mean, we're talking basically 40 to 50 milligrams a day. Man, it's rough, dude. That's just like, for a first cycle, you have no idea your response to androgens emotionally. You don't have an idea of your response to androgens physically, but you're just blasting all of the variety of compounds, so you have no idea which one's causing you the problem. You're basically grabbing a handful of darts and you're throwing them all at the dartboard. And you're like, I hope one hits the bullseye. And then like 8 of them fall off the dartboard. He's taking equipoise, which is a testosterone derivative. It's a synthetic steroid, same as trenbolone, but it's derived from the carbon molecule of testosterone. And so, I mean, it's kind of net neutral here. I don't know why he put this in. Maybe he's using it for estrogen management. There's, this sort of anti-estrogenic effect of equipoise that some people tend to experience. Again, hyper inter-individual. I don't tend to experience this, and I have obviously used to run steroids, so I kind of know that through my own blood work and regime that I used to do. But some people do to a large degree. Again, you wouldn't know this, you'd have to test. And with this being the first cycle, we're just hoping for the best here. And then the most diabolical, 30 milligrams of D-ball a day. The problem with D-ball is it is wildly estrogenic, and it doesn't just convert into estradiol. It's also a testosterone derivative, by the way, but it converts into methyl estradiol. And this is wildly hard to control or manage on cycle. And so you can really have a lot of instances where there's this like runaway gyno symptom and you can't control control it, unless you have like a SERM, a selective estrogen receptor modulator, and in which that case you could control it. But viably, D-ball is not genuinely a good option for 95% of people. 5% of the steroid users out there who do use it could justify it for, you know, powerlifting or increasing cross-sectional area momentarily through water retention, strength sports basically. But in reality, D-ball is probably one of those things that should just get thrown in the garbage for most people because we have better compounds to use. Arguably, this guy doesn't even need any of this, to be fair. To explain this, because I think it's so important to nail this one in the coffin due to D-ball's volatility of its use. It's just a not great compound to select. Methyl estradiol, 17-alpha methyl estradiol, is produced from the aromatization of D-ball, dianabol. You've heard of this drug before, surely. Comparably to typical estradiol, which is your body's natural form, it's called E2, maybe you might see this as, or just colloquially, you can call it estrogen. It is very stubborn. It's hard to get rid of. It's pesky as a metabolite. Because it's so unlike the actual form of estrogen in our body, it's much more difficult to get rid of it or manage it. And so when I say you can have this sort of like runaway train effect, you can start taking D-ball and you can aromatize fairly a little amount of it into methyl estradiol, but over time it builds up, and because it's very poorly metabolized by your body, it sticks around and you end up with symptoms like gyno in, you know, one morning out of the day, and you're like, wow, my nipples are really sensitive. And if you don't take care of it, it runs away on you. You start to develop breast tissue. Once that breast tissue is calcified, contrary to what many people think, you cannot reverse breast tissue development. You absolutely cannot. You know, it's like if I have this is a poor example, but if I have a mole develop or something like that, right? I can't just neutralize that mole by taking a compound that would block the receptor site or something like that. I would need to remove the mole surgically.
Anyways,
Tissue that has been developed is virtually impossible to atrophy. And in this case, you can't just get rid of breast tissue through post-management of it. It needs to be preemptive. It needs to be something where you're taking care of it before it ever happens. Or just don't take D-ball. At the end of the day, it's that simple. But going into the comments, it is pretty diabolical. This guy comments, my guy, your tits are not supposed to look like radio antennas. Seriously, I hope you start using Accutane. How are you blasting Trene and not hitting past a 225 bench yet? LOL. And he says, my tits are fine. They got sensitive, so I added Adex. Let me tell you right away, they are not fine. You have gyno. And I used Accutane, which is also just a terrible idea. To briefly explain, any sort of 17 alkylated steroid like D-ball is very hepatotoxic. It's very taxing to any sort of liver function. But Accutane is wildly hepatotoxic. So stacking those two things on top of each other and running them simultaneously at God knows what dose is just asking for hepatosteatosis, fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's a wreck. It is an absolute train wreck. And again, this is this guy's first exposure to compounds, and he's become a walking pharmacy, taking Accutane, he's taking Arimidex, he's taking 4 different steroidal compounds. I mean, it's through the roof. He says, why train for strength and explode my joints benching when I'm trying just to get big? It makes no sense, and you're silly if you even care about lifts in bodybuilding. Yeah, let's just pretend like the mechanism to hypertrophy isn't in part tied to mechanical tension, which means that increased load provides more mechanical tension, and over time you would hope to increase load as to provide more stimulus for hypertrophy. This guy says, taking gear to look and perform as a natty, LMFAO. Plus, the back knee is telling you to fucking stop. Second comment here says, normally I downvote this kind of comment like this because most people who take gear look like natties. You wouldn't believe how many chubby 45-year-old men are on low-dose cycles just to keep themselves from going into a morbidly obese category, which I do agree with. Most men, I'd say 1 out of 3 men in your gym right now are taking steroids. Depending on what gym you're at, that might be a far higher ratio. He says the back knee is cleared up after I blasted myself with Accutane, but yeah, the scarring will take surgery, but it's not a big deal. Surgery is a pretty big deal, bro, this guy says. When your goal is to make money off of your physique like I am, then it's not a big deal. You have to make sacrifices. It doesn't happen overnight. This is part of the process. Wild take for somebody whose first cycle looks like this, who seemingly is trying to make it an overnight process. And a very good evaluation by a Redditor, dude, you're not that guy. I'm sorry. There's millions of other young kids with better physiques that are even naturally more talented that'll make money. I think you need a reality check rather than than doing this stupid stuff. I entirely agree with it. It is a genetic pool at the end of the day. And some people have the proclivity to gain muscle on a uncapped scale. It's truly insane. Your physically enhanced potential by androgenic steroids, anabolic androgenic steroids, is sometimes less than what someone's ceiling is naturally. Genetics plays such a large role in the selection of, again, the success bias we see on the internet, the selection of good and valuable physiques, we'll say, in terms of like monetary value. You blasting steroids to beat that sort of limit, whatever it might be, is not the answer. You're just never going to be that. And that's